In this episode of Mind Shock, we're talking to Dr. Rod Fuentes from Santiago, Chile, who's going to share with us his insights and research into the Andean Codes, a fascinating approach understanding the mind going back thousands of years through antiquity, and how it correlates, how it relates to quantum field psychology, and our new film, The Endless Question, being released very soon on streaming services all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Mind Shock. This is Dr. RonDalrymple. Today we have with us a guest, a great individual, human being, researcher, the higher aspects of the mind, Dr. Rod Fuentes. Dr. Rod, how are you?
I'm fine here, Dr. Ron. Thanks for inviting me to your special broadcast.
Well, thank you very much for being here. It's our pleasure to have you. I've known you for now, about 25 or maybe 30 years?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Right,
very nice time, very interesting and exciting time to meet you,
Yes.
Dr. Ron.
Yes, my pleasure. We met through conjoint interest in the higher aspects of the mind, the higher powers of the mind, which is what we research in quantum field psychology. I know you're involved, of course, in the same type of research and have your own unique and fascinating approaches, which we will get to momentarily. But I'd like to just ask you for a moment your perception of one of the primary axioms of quantum field psychology, which is our book that came out in 2004, and which is a basis for our new film, The Endless Question, which is being released momentarily. We have a distributor on the West Coast. It'll be released globally in the very near future. And one of the primary axioms of quantum field psychology is that the mind is an energy field that transcends the physical brain. I know that you have a lot of insights about that. Could you tell us, please, your point of view about that concept?
Let me tell you, Ron, that this concept, even when it seems so modern in these times for many people, this concept was very ancient in the area where I grew up and I lived in the Andes. You know that here in the Andes, where I'm right now, they say that there was a special energy that they call kausai in ancient Quechua tongue, that means energy that give existence to everything that you see in the material world, in the planet. Wherever you go, this energy is everywhere, that they can grasp more easily. But it's a wonderful teaching that was all around this place for thousands of years.
Yes. Yeah, that's what really fascinated me when you told me about your research into the Andean Codes.
Yeah, you know this. I was lucky to be trained very in my life by a great master that was maybe one of the last links of this ancient civilization here in the Andes, who taught me this concept of kausai and many others. And among those others, we have what he called the Andean Codes. These codes are so ancient, nobody knows when they started here in the Andes. And many wise men of the past taught these teachings of the Andean Codes to their people many thousands of years ago. And they say that there were 7 codes in existence that could explain everything in life and why you're living your life, how you are having some results in your life, and if you're happy or unhappy. And these are the 7 Andean Codes, which have been teaching through books and lessons and seminars to some people. And I think that this is a teaching that should be teach to everybody today in this very chaotic world we are living now, to explain and to understand why life is like it is now why we are living the life we are living, and give many explanations that you cannot have in other way. It's very
Yes.
important, Ron, that you reminded me of these 7 Andean codes.
Yes, yes, that's a great insight. I think it's really fascinating that these concepts go back to thousands of years ago, source unknown. The implication might be that they were taken from perhaps Atlantis 10,000 years ago and hidden away up in the mountains of Peru to keep them safe. And later from the conquistadores, you told me stories about how they had invaded the area, had destroyed many people, but they were driven away from where these codes were directly hidden. We'll get to that in a moment. I want to get more to the exact, more information about the exact codes. What's fascinating is that, as you just stated, quantum field psychology is a reformulation, not intentionally, but it really came to me from the world of abstract thought for studying mathematics and physics and psychology, that you could express how the mind works as an energy field in terms of topological mathematics, calculus, and quantum physics. So we put together an entire new approach where we showed the formulas, the concepts, the axioms and lemmas of how the mind can be expressed as an energy field, and it makes perfect sense. So it creates a coincidence between the spiritual aspects and the scientific. So it can be used as an argument that spiritual science is science, and science has a spiritual nature as well. That all physical reality has a spiritual basis to it. That everything that exists, as you just mentioned, in the material world has an energy world correlate, and our thought energy is very real and has an impact upon the physical world around us. So it's very interesting that these ideas keep resurfacing and coming to people throughout history in different forms. And I know you agree with that from your research, your studies, and your involvement in the higher mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. What you're doing is to make a presentation of very, very ancient teachings that were taught here in the Andes, but science now, and through your effort, through the effort of many others who have been involved in the quantum physics, are reaching the same truth that these ancient people found thousands of before they disappeared, and they just left some hints, very important hints that I was taught when I was very young, and that shows the same truth that quantum physics is now discovering. That's amazing. When the truth is the truth from different areas and from different viewpoints, people reach to the truth, and you are getting the truth that was taught many thousands of years here, as you say, before the Atlantis, because I was a couple of weeks ago in this ancient monument that still exists in Chile and also in Peru, Chile where I live, and also in Peru, but especially in Peru, that was the center of these ancient civilizations. That where Chile was also a part of this ancient empire that existed here, and when you see these monuments made out of stone, huge stones that which weight is and if they advance in the science so much as they did, because you cannot explain how they could move those stones in Egypt,
Yes, yes, that really is fascinating, isn't it?
that you can understand that maybe they were the same civilization that after the sinking of the huge. Yeah, these guys were the same guy. Some went to the east, some went to the Andes, and they encircled the earth with these ancient teachings. Uh, Luckily, we are here in the Andes, and in the Andes, there are some people who kept these teachings secretly kept, uh, and I was lucky to be taught with these guys, and I could understand these teachings, and that's why we have been talking lately between you and me, that you are reaching the same basis that these ancient civilizations covered before they and the Andes the Andean Codes are very special teachings that allow to understand reality as it is, basis,
Yes.
as you have been saying
Yes.
in
Yeah.
your books.
Yeah. It's really fascinating that you come up with, or they came up with, thousands of years ago, interesting concepts and metaphors they created, which we'll get to in a moment, various metaphors to express different levels of consciousness, that a person can evolve from a lower level of consciousness through life to a higher level, and that many people exist in a certain state of mind, which they create by what they dwell upon, what they focus upon, what they feel, what they practice, and the world reflects back to them what they are projecting. I often tell people we work with that much of perception is projection. We project on the world around us what's inside of us, and it reflects back to us. We found ways to express that in terms of mathematics and physics to make more sense to the scientific world. Of course, what we run into is a tremendous amount of resistance from the world of science, from psychologists, from psychiatrists. We do find that physicists, engineers, and mathematicians tend to respond more closely to quantum field psychology because they understand it. Whereas the vast majority of psychologists, it seems, really are not, their favorite subject is not mathematics or physics. They tend to be more on the verbal side and using empathy and intuition. And so there's a little bit of blockage there, but it's taking time to get through. That's why we created the movie, which we'll tell more about in a little bit, The Endless Question, based on quantum field psychology. But it really is fascinating that there's a correlation between the concepts you've been studying and also how to implement those powers and those forces. You told me you've been studying recently how to bring those to a much higher level with your own research.
Yeah, these ancient civilizations were different to our civilization, to our current civilization, in the way that they developed themselves. They didn't only advance in science. They only advanced in the study of human beings. That was very important because they could understand many things that are very important for us today in this very troubled civilization we're living now, where the weather is changing. There's a lot of chronic disease, there's a lot of problem, politics, and everything. Economy is a disaster in many places. And these guys, this ancient civilization had not those problems because they evolved at the same time in the material world and the spiritual world. And that's something we must learn from them. Andean Code and this teaching of the past are now a light for us to understand us and to advance spiritually as well.
Yes.
Materially, as we are, we have advanced a lot, but not at the same time in our spirit, in our soul, in our mind.
Exactly. Great insight. Yeah, we're going to get more of that here in a few moments. And we're also going to talk about how we've been developing a program of teaching for various levels to do seminars and webinars combining the Andean Codes with quantum field psychology we've worked on for a while. And now we're going to take a break here in a moment. And this is Mind Shock with Dr. RonDalrymple interviewing Dr. Rod Fuentes. We'll be back in a moment. Have you ever been on a bus or in a store and you feel somebody's eyes upon you? You turn around, you look directly at them. Now, how is that possible? How could you feel that? Today we're going to talk about a whole new theory of mind called quantum field psychology. Okay, we're back, folks, with Mind Shock with Dr. RonDalrymple interviewing Dr. Rod Fuentes, coming all the way from Santiago, Chile, 4,214 miles away. We now switch to a telephone hookup, do some internet problems. We're going to resume by asking Dr. Fuentes. Rod, first off, how you doing?
I'm fine, Ron. Thanks for that. I'm here, ready to go.
Okay, great. We're going to pick things up by asking you about your Andean Code research, which we talked about earlier, really some fascinating research. Could you explain to us, please, the point of view from the Andean Codes in your analysis of the different levels of consciousness? Please tell us about that.
Okay. I just was saying that these ancient masters of the Andean zone, they understood that we are a very complex mixture of matter and light. And we are very complex as human beings, and that's why we have some lot of problems if we don't understand ourselves. But they did. Luckily, they did, and they thought that as we are matter, very condensed material, we are physical body, but we are also light. This means we are energy, and also we are spirit. And therefore, in this complex mixture, sometimes we get a little lost if we don't understand what we really are. So, a human being that understands himself or herself very well can understand that he takes part in 4 different levels of consciousness, because matter has a consciousness as well as the spirit, and therefore and we talk and we say that we have the 4 different levels of consciousness. The first one is the physical body. Everybody who has a physical body can understand physical consciousness. When you have pain in somewhere in your body, when you are hungry or you are thirsty, this is a consciousness of the physical. But if you begin to advance as a human being in more subtle levels, you go later on to a different level that is an emotional level. You know, they use a lot of metaphor to teach these things, and they say that the physical level is the level of the snake. When you see in these ancient monuments in the Andes, you can see always the 3 or 4 animals, which are the snake, the puma, the hummingbird, and the condor. And they try to teach with this metaphor of different animals that resemble somehow these levels, because the condor has some qualities that are very close to the spiritual, and the snake are very close, very similar to the physical, only the physical. So the first level is the physical of the snake level. The second one is emotional and mind, very concrete mind. That's the puma level. The puma is an animal which is more active. You know, he hunts, he has his temper. You know, the same way the human being who only lives in this level. Most human beings live in this level. They're emotional. They sometimes don't know how to control their emotions. That's the level of the puma. But if you advance a little more, you will reach another level in your consciousness that is the hummingbird level. This level is a level of the abstract mind, the mind of the thinker, the mind that analyzes things in the universe and can reach conclusions. In this level, the hummingbird, you think in analogies, you think in symbols, you think a different way than the concrete mind. And later on, the level, which is the highest. At this level, there's no separation between things. Everything is a unity. Everything is connected to each other through energy, and that's the level of the master. You know. So, as a human being, you can access 4 different levels, but most of the time, human beings only reach the puma level. They don't go beyond that level, and they miss or they lose the path. In those higher levels, you can understand many things, like quantum physics. You can understand why your life is the life you're living. You can understand the laws that rule the universe. And but as a human being, you have access to all these levels, very different to an animal or a tree or a rock or a cloud that has not a spirit, but it's not a mixture of light and matter. This is a very, very brief explanation, because there's a lot of teachings how to develop these levels. There's many exercises, drills, and many, many things to develop these levels and to become a real human being as this master were.
Yes.
These levels, when you reach the condor level, you can do many things that could seems very like magic or miracles for many people.
Yes.
That's a
Exactly.
very brief explanation.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, I think it's really great. We look at in quantum field psychology the idea that as we expand our consciousness, we're increasing the frequency of energy. So we're able to take in a lot more, to see more, to think more abstractly, to use the imagination. We also get into creative intelligence. We talk about the laws of creation, in fact, in quantum field psych and in the endless question, which is where one, at the condor level you're referring to, the highest level, where a person takes on much more creative powers, and you can use that power to actually shift the world around you, to affect other people, affect the world in very positive ways, ideally, because whatever you project out, of course, returns back to you in form. So I think it's really great metaphors they taught in their time in ways that people would understand, much like various characters in the Bible, for example, and other ancient texts taught in form of metaphor, so people would understand the concepts. But those who could think more deeply saw beyond that and saw to higher laws which are being expressed as well through those ideas. So at the level of condor, one can take on much greater creative powers and self-directive powers and so forth. You also talk about in your work, the Indian Codes, about that people eventually become luminous beings. They become luminous energy beings. Can you tell us more about that, please?
You begin to live to the level of the hummingbird, and later on the level of the condor. Reality begins to appear very different. Your problems have a reason. You can understand how you created them and how to dissolve them. You begin to interact energetically with the universe as a whole. You can interact with the sun, you can interact with the water. You can see that everything that exists is alive and has consciousness. So the level of the condor is a very high one, but everybody here today living in this earth has these abilities because he and she's a human being. This is not for the selected one. This is not for the chosen one. This is for any human being that can understand what I'm talking about and have the purpose to develop these levels. It's a legacy for any human being living on this earth. And but when you begin to live in these levels, reality seems very different. You know, the condor lives to a very high altitude, and he can see, the condor can see everything below. So he has a very panoramic view of things, very different to the level of the snake. A snake only, crawls on the soil, so it has a very little perspective of things. But many people live in the levels of the snake. For instance, some physicians that only see the physical body and cannot understand that maybe the problem somebody has is emotional. It's not. It's a psychosomatic disease, for instance. And so if you begin to advance in these levels, you can become a very different human being. And then you have those who are very well developed in the level of the condor, who are those who reach the level of Jesus Christ, or the level of Hermes in the past, or Buddha. This master of the Andes use these metaphors that are very how to say it? It's a very nice way to teach others through symbols, because symbols are very easy to grasp, and they go deep in your mind, and they are kept there for the future. But whenever you find a person who reached a high level of consciousness, he reached or she reached the level of the condor. And that's what we call the luminous beings, those beings who don't have anything to learn yet anymore on this earth, and they just go to higher levels of consciousness beyond the condor that nobody knows what it is, what's that, because it's too high. But as human beings, we have the chance today and now to begin to practice the drills and the exercise to reach these higher levels and to see how in those levels we can understand our life very differently, and we can understand and how we can dissolve and our problems that seem so unsurmountable today.
Right.
That's what I can tell in this, Ron.
It really is a fascinating description. Thank you. I think it's a great way to teach through metaphor, through symbol, because as you mentioned, those are planted in our mind already at deeper levels, something which Jung got into, the idea that we have these symbolism, we have images which reawaken or help us aware, make us aware of much higher states of consciousness or lead us in that direction. And that a big part of life, of course, is working towards those goals and constantly trying to expand our state of consciousness. Paul called that the constant renewing of our minds. So we see a coincidence, a concordance from all these different approaches taught by different people throughout the ages, expressing the same concepts towards higher states of consciousness. I think it's really a fascinating approach you have with the Andean Codes, which parallels, again, quantum field psychology as expressed in the endless question. Now, could you tell us, please, where our viewers can find more information about your fascinating works? Where can they find your books and your teachings?
They can find, I wrote lately a book that is called From Ayahuasca to Andean Gratitude. They may find it in Amazon. But also we have a website that is called AndesQuantumJump.com. There's some free stuff people can get through that site, and they can get much more information. Because I'm just talking about the only very briefly of these very, very, very deep teachings that are very similar to the discoveries you're making on the quantum field psychology. Because the truth is only one. It's only one throughout all the ages.
Exactly. Great insight. Yes, and I'm sure our viewers will love to go to Amazon to find your books. And we're also talking about doing, like I mentioned before, some webinars, some teachings where we combine your Andean Codes with quantum field psychology. We'll keep working on that, I think, for some time. There's a lot to evolve there. And to find more information about the endless question, that will be released and distributed soon. We have a distributor in the West Coast on LA who's going to be releasing this very soon through various streaming services. So it should be available, and we're not sure which ones yet, but our viewers might check with the streaming service, see if they can find The Endless Question. It's a 2-hour documentary talking about the powers of the mind and how to develop those powers and so forth. They can also go to your website, as you mentioned, and we'll have posted on the show notes, and also go to Amazon for your books and for our books. So Dr. Rod Fuentes, Dr. Ron Dalrymple, any final closing thoughts, Dr. Fuentes, about these ideas?
Just to say that this is not something that is special for special people. Everybody today living on Earth is a human being with these capabilities and these same goals. Many people are just looking at life from the level of a snake, and they get confused thinking that life is only living a material life, having fun or having money, which is not bad, but it's only the first level. You can only reach happiness and you can only reach fulfillment when you reach your higher levels of existence, because only then you are complete and you are a true human being.
That's true. Great.
That's only my final words.
Okay, great. Those are
My
great.
final words are.
Yeah, those are great final words. Thank you very much. Again, Dr. Rod Fuentes from Santiago, Chile. Please check out his work. This is Dr. Ron Dalrymple from Mind Shock signing off. Thank you very much.
This has been Mind Shock with Dr. Ron Dalrymple. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to future episodes. Check out our website for more content.